Well, look, the Houston Rockets turned Jalen Green into Kevin Durant. That is an unbelievable upgrade.
It's one of the greatest players ever, one of the best scorers ever. It's going to make my life a lot easier, you know what I mean?
Picture this. You just pulled off one of the wildest blockbuster trades of the offseason. You finished second in the Western Conference, and then you shocked the entire NBA by landing Kevin Durant, one of the greatest scorers the game has ever seen. But here's where it gets crazy. Right after bringing him in, the Houston Rockets tell Durant they're not planning on giving him the max. Yes, you heard that right. Houston makes the trade of the summer for a 36-year-old superstar, and instead of securing him long-term, they take a hardline stance no one saw coming. They're flat-out refusing to offer Kevin Durant a maximum extension. Why would a front office take such a gamble? Is this pure confidence in their future plan, or a mistake that could blow up everything they just built? Durant may still have plenty left in the tank, but Houston is playing a dangerous game. One of the boldest, or maybe foolish, moves we've ever seen. And trust me, the fallout of this decision could completely reshape the Rockets' future.
They waited till the price was at a value that they felt was comfortable for them. Kevin Durant, he's not necessarily their priority. But while trying to cash in on this window that they created by getting Kevin Durant, their priorities are that they have as long of a runway as possible, but it's not going to be a max extension for Kevin Durant in Houston.
Picture this. You just mortgaged your future to pull off one of the craziest trades in recent NBA history. You gave up your young cornerstone, future assets, and a chance at long-term flexibility, all for one man, Kevin Durant, a player who, for nearly 2 decades, has been the definition of unstoppable scoring. And at 36 years old, Durant is still producing at an elite level. But here's the twist. After all of that, after cashing in your chips to land him, you turn around and tell him, "We're not giving you the max." Yes, the Houston Rockets are staring Kevin Durant in the eyes and saying, "You're worth less." They're offering him around $100 million over 2 years, when Durant is eligible for $122 million. That $22 million difference might not sound like much for billion-dollar organizations, but in the NBA, it's more than numbers. It's respect. It's leverage. And it's a move that could either cement the Rockets as ruthless business masterminds or set them up for disaster. Because let's be real, this is Durant's last real payday. At 36, under the NBA's over 38 rule, he can only sign for 2 more seasons. This extension is the final chance to stack generational wealth, and Durant knows it. So why would Houston take this gamble? Why poke the bear of one of the most gifted players the league has ever seen? To answer that, you've got to understand history, because the NBA is full of teams who bet on aging superstars, handed them massive contracts, and regretted it almost immediately. The ghosts of contracts past. Let's rewind. 2013, Los Angeles Lakers. They hand Kobe Bryant a 2-year, $48.5 million extension. At the time, I thought this was more of a thank you gift than a basketball decision. Kobe was already recovering from a torn Achilles. And what happened? He barely played 6 games that first season, missed huge chunks of the second, and during the life of that deal, the Lakers went 38-126. The team drowned while Kobe's contract ate nearly 40% of their salary cap. One Lakers executive even admitted, "We could have tanked for free, but instead we paid $25 million a year to tank." Kobe deserved respect, but that contract locked LA into years of mediocrity. Next example, the Brooklyn Nets in 2013. They swung for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce, both past their primes. They paid nearly $91 million in luxury tax, got 1 playoff series win, and watched Garnett and Pierce collapse statistically. Worst of all, those draft picks they traded away, they turned into Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, players who ended up bringing a championship back to Boston while the Nets spiraled into irrelevance. Or Paul George just last year. Philadelphia signed him to a 4-year, $212 million deal at age 34. The Clippers, who had him in his prime, basically said, "We're good." Why? Because they knew the risk of paying him through his age 38 season. George had missed major time in 4 of 5 years with LA. His playoff track record was shaky. Philly still rolled the dice, and the entire league raised eyebrows. The lesson? Aging stars decline faster than you think, and the teams that commit max dollars to them often end up trapped. The exceptions. LeBron and Steph. But not every story is a nightmare. LeBron James signed a $153 million deal at age 33, followed by extensions that will pay him more than $200 million through his age 40 season. Guess what? He delivered a championship in 2020, reached the conference finals in 2023, and remains an all-NBA force. For once, every penny looked justified. Steph Curry followed the same path. At age 33, he signed a 4-year, $215 million extension. Everyone wondered, is Golden State insane? Well, Curry silenced every critic. In 2022, he won Finals MVP and his 4th championship. Even last season at 36, he was dropping 26 a night on absurd efficiency. So yes, sometimes the gamble pays off, when a player is generational, when their skill set ages like fine wine. Durant's camp will argue he belongs in that category, and maybe they're right. Few players in NBA history have bounced back from an Achilles tear like Durant has. He's still elite, still efficient, still capable of 30 on any given night. But Houston isn't just thinking about today. They're thinking about tomorrow. The hometown discount argument. Here's the other angle. Legends like Tim Duncan and Dirk Nowitzki took less money late in their careers so their teams could stay competitive. Duncan signed 2 years for just $10.4 million combined at ages 38 and 39. Dirk took $5 million in his final season, sacrificing tens of millions to help Dallas. Would Durant ever do that? Probably not. He's never been wired like Duncan or Dirk. But Houston hopes their culture of team-friendly deals will work even on him. Because this isn't just theory. Look at their recent history. Alperen Şengün could have gotten $224 million. He signed for $185 million. Jabari Smith Jr. signed a $90 million deal well below rookie max value. Even Fred VanVleet restructured for flexibility. Jalen Green, before being shipped to Phoenix, took $16 million over 3 years instead of maxing out. GM Rafael Stone has created a culture where players accept less for the greater good. Now the question is whether Durant, a future Hall of Famer, would buy into that philosophy. The harsh reality of Durant's age. Let's not sugarcoat it. Kevin Durant is still great, but he's not invincible. Last season, he averaged 26.6 points, 6 rebounds, and 4 assists on 52.7% shooting. That's ridiculous efficiency for anyone, let alone a 36-year-old. His isolation numbers? Still elite. But here's the red flag. He played just 62 games, calf strains, ankle injuries, missed the final stretch of the year. And this wasn't new. Durant has played more than 60 games only twice in the last 5 seasons. When he's out, teams crumble. Phoenix went 33-29 with him and 3-17 without him. That's impact. But it's also risk, because if he breaks down, the Rockets are left holding an unmovable $122 million contract. History shows us how fast it can happen. Carmelo Anthony was averaging 22 a game at age 33. 1 year later, 16 points, 40% shooting, traded, waived, and blackballed for over a year. Never signed for big money again. At Durant's age, one injury could everything. The new CBA trap. And here's the bigger issue. The NBA's new CBA punishes mistakes like never before. Overspend on one bad contract and your team is handcuffed. Above the second tax apron, you lose trade flexibility, can't sign buyout players, and your draft assets freeze. Just ask Phoenix about Bradley Beal. They're locked into a $250 million contract for an aging, injury-prone guard and can't move him. Their championship window? Slammed shut. Or look at Jordan Poole. His $140 million extension looked fine until he collapsed in the playoffs. Golden State had to attach assets just to dump him a year later. Ben Simmons, Russell Westbrook. We've seen this story over and over. Houston doesn't want to be the next cautionary tale. The Rockets' bigger picture. Let's zoom out. Houston's payroll is already massive, $248 million projected next season, $60 million over the tax line. Giving Durant the max would crush them under luxury penalties. But here's the sneaky part. Their real plan revolves around 2027. That's when Amen Thompson hits extension eligibility, and multiple contracts expire or become non-guaranteed. Thompson exploded last season, and along with Şengün, he's viewed as the real cornerstone of Houston's future. So yes, Durant is a luxury, a go-to scorer who can carry the offense while the young stars grow, but he's not the franchise's long-term center, and the Rockets know it. Durant's perspective. Here's the catch. Durant isn't dumb. He knows this is his last big deal. He's not going to walk away from $22 million just because Houston is playing Moneyball. He's already hinted at it. I've always bet on myself. That doesn't sound like someone willing to take a discount. And if Houston doesn't offer the max, Durant has options. Before the trade, he reportedly listed only 3 teams he'd extend with: Houston, San Antonio, and Miami. Both the Spurs and Heat could swoop in, offer the money, and the chance to win. Houston's nightmare scenario? Durant plays this season, knows he's walking, and leaves in 2026 for nothing. The Kawhi comparison. Or maybe it works out like Kawhi Leonard in Toronto. Kawhi joined for 1 year, delivered a championship, and left. Toronto didn't regret it for a second. Could Durant be Houston's Kawhi, win them a title, and then walk? If so, every penny, max or not, is worth it. The final question. So here's where it all lands. Do you pay Kevin Durant max money, knowing the risks? Or do you stick to your philosophy, draw the line, and risk losing him altogether? On one hand, Durant is still a generational scorer, a matchup nightmare, the perfect piece for a Rockets team that was already a top seed without him. On the other, history screams that maxing out aging stars usually ends in disaster. This isn't just about numbers. It's about legacy, respect, and whether the Rockets are bold enough or foolish enough to play hardball with one of the greatest to ever pick up a basketball. Because make no mistake, whichever path they choose, the decision will define not only Kevin Durant's final years, but the Rockets' entire championship window.